Okay.
Hi.
So, without further ado, welcome everybody.
Yeah.
We're doing the hybrid again, and excuse us if we have technical difficulties. We're getting better every time we do this. So I'm Elizabeth Gearhart, and this is Stacy Sherman. She's the co-host of this meetup, and we have Scott Clary and Simona Constantini.
Hello.
And I'm really excited about this. So Richard Gearhart is also our sponsor from Gearhart Law. And I have my notes in front of me. And then for the Zoom experience, which I don't know how many people have on Zoom, we had a whole bunch sign up. Nick Nalbach is managing the Zoom experience. So thank you, Nick. Can we see Nick big? Is that possible? I don't know.
Am I controlling that or are you controlling that?
Okay, can you say hi real quick, Nick?
Hey, how's it going?
Okay.
I'm Nick.
Okay. Okay. We'll get a chance to talk a little more in a minute. So it would be great if everybody in the room could make a note of our podcast, which I had on the TV, but I'll put back on. And it'd be great if you could subscribe to the speakers podcast. They're doing this out of the goodness of their hearts and because they like doing presentations, but it'd be nice if we could pay them back a little bit by subscribing to their podcasts. So they'll be telling you the names. So I see nobody has their phone. Well, a few people have your phone out. So yeah, if you get your phone out and put it on there, you can use phones during this. Just please turn the ringers off. And so we're going to discuss podcasts and YouTube. So anybody that's been in the space for all you know that a lot of podcasters have been uploading their content via RSS feeds to the different podcasting platforms. But then in 2022, YouTube decided they were going to do YouTube podcasts, which are, I don't think they're even still true podcasts in the true spirit of podcasting, but we want to see what that means for podcasters and how it fits in. And what do you do different on YouTube that you do when you're podcasting? I want to introduce Nick before we really get rolling. So Nick, would you like to say something about who you are, what your business is, and the name of your event that's coming up?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Nick Nalbach, as we all know now. I got into podcasting back in 2020, and it was the first time getting into the content creation thing. Scared the hell out of me. And ever since I kind of dove headfirst into that, I just became in love with the entire process. I went from audio to getting on video, probably doing video more than I'm doing just audio now, which is pretty awesome. So I'm kind of a real life case study that if I can do it, anybody can do it, because it was really bad. It was really bad. So I started a podcast coaching business after a lot of people were coming to me asking like, hey, can you help me start a podcast? Sure, let's do it. After ChatGPT came about, everyone's aware of ChatGPT and all of the AI magic that is out there in the world right now. Mark Ronick, another podcast producer, and myself decided to start Next Gen Podcaster, which is basically just a community to help content creators, podcasters uncover the world of AI, learn how to use AI for their own processes, improve their workflows, that kind of thing. But as we were talking about with the Zoom group here, we do it in a way that it's not eliminating you from the equation. We want to use AI to help you, not eliminate you. So that's kind of what we do now. We help people with AI and content creation, podcasting, all that. And then the event that we got coming up, which Simona, you might have to help me with the dates on it. I think it's the 27th.
27th to the 30th.
Yes. So that is the Empowered Podcasting event. Yes, in June. And that's going to be awesome. I'm so pumped. We're going to have a ton of awesome podcasters and speakers there. And this is all to empower independent podcasters. I'm
what's the name of it and how do people find it?
Empowered Podcasting is the name of the event. And I will put a link in here in the chat. And I'm not sure how I get the link to everyone there, but if you search Empowered Podcasting event, it should come up there.
It's also empoweredpodcasting.com. We'll take you there too.
And that's in Charlotte, right?
Yep.
Okay. So Charlotte next month? Okay. Thank you, Nick. And thank you for doing the Zoom part of the event. It's really important to have you here. And now
thank you, guys.
a word from our sponsor.
Yes, we're sponsoring. We've been working with entrepreneurs for the last 18 years, and it's a passion of ours. we just feel like the podcasting community is an extension of that. We have so many people who have fresh, new, creative ideas that are trying to get them out there. And so we're happy to support this event. Elizabeth and I are podcasters and radio people and everything else. So it's just a lot of fun for us. And I have to say, I've really enjoyed meeting everybody here. So it's been a great investment. So.
Great. So I'm going to introduce myself and then I'm going to ask everybody here to introduce themselves for 5 minutes. So I'm Elizabeth Gearhart. I'm a chemist by training, now doing YouTube and podcasting and some marketing too. And I co-host the Passage to Profit show, a nationally syndicated radio show and podcast about entrepreneurism with Richard. And we're in our 7th year and we love interviewing guests on our show. In addition, in late 2022, I started another podcast completely unrelated with Danielle Woolley called the Jersey Cat Podcast to talk about cats because I had a sick cat and I couldn't figure out how to heal it. So I thought, well, maybe people will tell me. And then I have another podcast that I just do for fun and research that I'm not even going to tell you what it is because it's just kind of a weird one, but I use it to do a lot of research with on both YouTube and in podcasting. And during COVID, I dove into YouTube. I did about 100 interviews of business owners for a business I was developing then. And I started really researching YouTube and I'm still doing that and researching podcasting. But enough about me. Let's get to our panel. Stacy, co-host.
Hi, everyone. So Stacy Sherman, and I have a podcast called Doing CX Right. Customer experience is what CX is. And I have 132 shows, all interview based, which is with well-known authors and incredible, knowledgeable business people. I left corporate a year ago and now keynote speaking and doing all this with you. So glad to be here.
Okay, Scott, you're on the hot seat.
I know. So really great to meet everyone here. My name's Scott Clary. Currently, I live down in Miami. I moved down there from Toronto about 3 years ago. I run a podcast called Success Story. So it's one of the larger business shows. I've interviewed over 500 people, including founder of Netflix, founder of Reebok, and obviously tons of others. My background is in tech. So I would say there was 2 major pivotal moments in my life that sort of led me to where I am right now. The first was when I was leading sales and marketing at a company that was acquired by private equity. And that sort of opened my eyes up to ownership and entrepreneurship. And that sort of set me down the entrepreneur path. I've not just interviewed, but I've worked with hundreds of entrepreneurs. I've worked with startup incubators, University of Toronto, Futurepreneur. I've done judging for pitch competitions for entrepreneurs. I love the startup ecosystem. The second event that really sort of put me on the path that I'm on today, after working with entrepreneurs, after working with startups, after working in startups, it was when I was building my last company, which is a broadcast software company that was sold 4 years ago. When I was building that company, I realized that if this company is acquired, no one's going to know my name the second I get that check. No one's going to know or care about me the day after the company is acquired. Because if you don't build something really, truly massive, you got to start from scratch. So I studied the Gary Vaynerchuk's and the Seth Godins of the world and all the other great marketers. I was like, okay, not only am I, immersed in the entrepreneurial ecosystem, I have access to a whole bunch of incredible people, and I should be able to tell their story and hopefully help people not have to reinvent the wheel when they build. So my thesis was, let me build a community around startup entrepreneurship, other incredible people. And that's sort of what birthed my show Success Story, which I've been doing for the past 6 years. And now I've built sort of an incredible personal brand on the back of that podcast, of that community. And now, of course, I have my social, I have the podcast, I have a newsletter, about 300,000 people on the email list. I'm writing a book, I'm doing the speaking thing, I'm doing all the stuff. So yeah, it's just building a community, and I will do the podcast till the day I die because it's the best thing I've ever done. So that's me.
Love that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, Gary Vaynerchuk says people in their 70s should start a
they
podcast.
should.
Mhm.
Yes.
They should.
So
And
we're almost.
so, and then Simona Constantini, down from Toronto.
Yes,
Yeah.
also from Toronto. God, I do all the same things as you, obviously. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. My name's Simona. I run a podcast production agency called Volt Productions. We are a high top tier podcast production agency. I operate it out of my home, and my home is pretty much anywhere in the world. So that's really fun. I host 2 podcasts of my own. One is called Happiness Happens. And on that podcast, I interview entrepreneurs and thought leaders to understand what happiness means to them, why we feel like we're missing it, and how do we get more of it. So that has been a really fun show I've been doing since 2018. And the other podcast is a newer show. It's called As It Relates to Podcasting. And on that podcast, I dive deep into one specific area of podcasting every single month, whether that's email marketing, paid ads, TikTok, and YouTube, and all of the above, to understand how to leverage these different marketing tools to grow your podcast and to make it something that you that you are amplifying out to your audience. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. I'm obsessed with my dog. His name is Gus, and he's a cockapoo. So if you ever want to talk puppies and Pinot Grigio, I am your girl. It's a straw. It's a straw.
So I have to laugh because Scott said the magic word AI, and AI decided it could take over this meeting. And there was a message up on the computer saying that AI wanted to come up with a list of questions we were going to answer.
You would come up with good questions.
We should cross-reference those questions and see.
I already did some questions, but I did not use ChatGPT. So we're going to jump into, I'm going to ask the panel a few questions, and then we're going to open it up to the room, and then we'll pull questions off the chat from Zoom. So, and I do want to just quickly give a shout out to Adam Samuel, who is here from England. He's an old friend of Richard's.
Yay.
Well, not that old, right, Adam? But thank you for coming. So he's another attorney. So yeah, watch out. Anyway,
awesome.
So I think one question that people ask, and I want everybody on the panel to give one reason, and I'll go last. So kind of a standard known of marketing is that you should have content on YouTube. And anybody you talk to who's done marketing for a long time says, yeah, you got to be on YouTube. So I want to know why. So Simona, we'll start with you. Why should people be on YouTube?
I was hoping we'd put Scott on the hot seat first.
We'll take your turns.
I don't let me go. Don't let me go.
It's about to get rogue here. It's after hours,
for
okay?
2 hours on YouTube. Go ahead.
So could I. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I was thinking about this, and I really feel like it's a missed opportunity to not have your content on YouTube. You know, there's a lot of different platforms that you can be putting your content on. There's a lot of different ways in which you can market it, and so on. Having that said, you spend a lot of time creating your show. That why not take what you have and amplify it? So for me, it's really that missed opportunity piece, and it's more of like a why not? Over to you.
So I'll add on to that answer, because what podcasters lack is organic reach. You do not have organic reach with an RSS feed.
Mhm.
That's difficult because any other creator on any other platform is going to have organic reach. You post on TikTok, even if you post on Twitter, you post on LinkedIn, Instagram, it doesn't matter. People will see it, right? So YouTube is owned by Alphabet, the parent company of Google. It is the second largest search engine in the world. So when you post on YouTube and you have SEO optimized titles and you have SEO optimized show notes and whatever, you will get some organic reach. And that organic reach is going to help you grow your show. So it's not only organic reach, which is great, but simultaneously, YouTube is also a high trust social platform. So when people see your face, they discover you, they will dovetail and eventually turn into audio subscribers. But ultimately, it's going to get your name out there in a way that just putting an MP3 on an RSS is not going to do. So that's why I do it.
Thank you.
Love that.
So my additional view on top of what they said is that your listeners are your customers. Okay. And so what you need and want to do is always make it easy for them. So by having choice, video and audio makes it more likely that they'll listen and you're giving them an experience. So that is an additional reason.
And those are all amazing reasons. So I'm going to pull my chemist PhD hat out here and say, what I love about YouTube is the reams of analytical data that you get, and you can use that data, and it's free. It's like, if you want to get that data from someplace else, you're going to have to pay for it, but you can really go in and do a deep dive, and you can compare how different shows are doing, different videos are doing. You can see who your audience is. everything. So that's one of the things I really love
You can
about
see when they
YouTube.
stop listening.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very important. You don't get that
Right.
granular on an audio.
Yeah. So,
Mhm. That's
so
such a
yeah.
good point.
So all great reasons. So is everybody convinced they need to be on YouTube? Okay. We should have asked YouTube to sponsor. Yeah. Right. So, I'm just going to go down the road here. So Simona, if you go into your YouTube channel now, you can see you can designate a playlist as a podcast. So it distributes your content the way other content is distributed on YouTube. It also puts it on YouTube Music. Can you just take your videos as is and throw them on there as a podcast, or do you have to change something?
Okay, so this is a question that we talk a lot about often. I mean, Nick would attest to this. We have this conversation all the time. Uh, Through the RSS feed platforms like your Libsyn, Buzzsprout, and all that, you can automatically feed your podcast through to YouTube. I don't know about you all, but that's not something that I personally do. I like to keep everything separate and upload my videos separately because I like to test different titles, different covers, and especially because it's a video podcast, it's not just an audio version. I like being able to have the flexibility to take the content that's there and make changes and make tweaks because you wouldn't think it, but you could change something in your title and that could skyrocket a video, even if it's a video that's been live for a few days or cover art or so on, so on. And then you can take that. So one thing that I'm in the process of doing right now for my As It Relates to Podcasting show, like I was mentioning earlier, every single month I have 4 episodes that specify on one topic in particular. Those 4 episodes can make a playlist. And so your playlist doesn't have to be hundreds and hundreds of videos. I think as long as the content is similar and like it makes sense for it to be in a playlist together, then you can have it in a playlist in that way. And so I like the idea of taking these 4 episodes that are meant to be packaged together and putting those as a playlist, right? Because then if one video takes off, then you have more opportunity that somebody else is going to click on to the next one as well. So that's what I would start with. What would you add?
That's excellent. I do
Oh,
want to
sorry, yeah.
say one thing. So for people that are new to podcasting, so RSS feed is called stands for really simple syndication. And basically what it means is that you take,
Is that actually what it means?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And did you know that Libsyn started out liberated syndication? I told
I
you.
did know that. I
I
did know
do
that. Yep.
research. That's my thing. I do research.
You're
Anyway.
academic.
I'm sitting over here like the peanut gallery. I'm like, what?
So it's a feed. I don't even know how to describe. People say like it's kind of like the URL to your website or something. So anyway, it's the feed, it's the audio, and it sends it out to a whole bunch of different places. So that's why it's called RSS feed. And that's kind of why people think YouTube handles RSS feed differently. So that's why they don't think YouTube podcasts are really true podcasts, right? So, okay. I'm going to ask, do you want to answer that question or should we go on to a new one? That was a pretty good answer.
It was a great answer.
Thanks.
I would say that I would just address the concern, which would be, what if I just because I also what I do, just I edit the audio and the video. I'll upload the audio and I'll upload the video. I will not use the hosting platform to distribute.
Same.
I'll upload it to YouTube, but it will be the same video and audio that will go into both
Yes.
hosting and YouTube. But yes, I also test subjects, test thumbnails, whatever. The concern would be, well, if I'm uploading the same video, like a long form video, what happens if I'm not getting any views? And that's a valid concern because YouTube as a platform does not really favor long form hour, even 30-minute, hour and a half video content. YouTube as a platform favors 8, 10, 12-minute plus short form. So I would say to sort of not worry about that as much is find a strategy or a tool or a system or a process that lets you take that long form and turn it into a whole bunch of derivative short form content, which is what I do. And very briefly, it's long form, full length podcast. Find really prolific ideas, turn them into 8 to 10-minute short form clips, which is more in line with an ideal YouTube video. And then also you can use a variety of tools, or you can do it yourself, get a whole bunch of 30 to 45-second short form reel, YouTube shorts, TikTok style. And you have those sort of 3 types of content all coming from that one long form video. So full long form video, 10-minute, and then 30 to 60-second, all coming from that long form. And then you'll still tap into like the discoverability opportunity on YouTube with those other types of content. which will turn those people that discover you into long form fans.
So
You upload your identical content as your long form video.
Correct.
As your audio.
Correct.
So are you editing for video or for audio?
So the question is, do you take your video, your YouTube video, long form content and put it on audio podcasts? And then when you're editing, are you editing for video or are you editing for audio?
I edit for video. I edit for video. And what I mean by that is I will not do jump cuts to remove every single
Yep.
Oh, those are awful.
but if you do the jump cuts, it ruins the video experience.
It does. It
because
does.
it's because then people will be watching it and they'll say they skipped over a bit and it removes the authenticity of the podcast.
So do you know what jump cuts are, everybody? It's when you're editing and you cut out, like if somebody's going, I forgot what I was going to say, and you cut that out.
I would
There's-
cut that.
Yeah, I
You
would
said
cut
forgot
that too.
them.
Yeah. Like, let's be clear.
But,
I know what you're saying.
but then there's a glitch, like you can see the glitch.
Yeah.
Right?
So I would cut that out if it was like a significant, but somebody who edits for audio first traditionally would cut out an extra half-second pause or
Yep.
or an and then you get this. For example, you can record a 60-minute show and you could get maybe like 45 minutes of content out of that show. When I edit for video first, because this is my working thesis, I need organic reach and discoverability. I need that to grow my show. And I look at the biggest podcasts in my category, whatever niche, you know, Diary of a CEO, My First Million, Impact Theory, School of Greatness, all video first. So I have to, oh my goodness.
I heard was really thrilled at that answer. I heard like we're coming on.
We just had a sign kind of fall down.
That's my
Trying to
thesis.
get more
Because
chairs.
I see the biggest shows, even if they include the uhs and the ums, they still grow bigger because of the organic reach focused on video first.
But do you think that growth is coming from their video or their audio?
I think it's coming from their video.
So,
I
yeah,
believe
so is the
that.
growth coming from video or audio? So we have another question back
So
here.
I do a lot of live streaming and I have a second podcast than what I talked about.
Yeah.
It may be a 1 to 2 hour, we break down a show, a TV show. What you're saying, are you saying to do the live, leave it on YouTube, then recut it however you want to cut it and put it on 4 to 5 minutes at a piece for that piece of.
Yeah, that's additional content for your channel.
Okay.
Yeah.
So-
No, I'm just trying to make.
Yeah,
sure
yeah,
that-
no, you, that's exactly it. Yes,
Okay.
you would upload so a good
So,
example of who does
let
that
me
is
repeat the-
Valuetainment.
Let me repeat the question real quick,
Yeah, yeah.
Scott. So the question was, if you're live streaming for an hour or two, do you put that on YouTube and then chop it up into smaller
Yeah.
bits?
So I would say yes. So a good example of this is Valuetainment with Patrick Bet-David. He does a full live podcast, no edits. Like if something happens, it's streaming because he does all the podcasts live now. And then he'll take all that whatever that full content, he'll post it, he'll put a thumbnail, look like a full YouTube video, be hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever. And then he'll take it and he'll chop it up into 10-minute or 5-minute clips that have like this really prolific idea. That's how he does it.
Do you want to add something, Stacey?
Yeah. To save money, I do exactly that. I have the video edited and then that's put onto my audio. So I have someone help me, but it starts with the video so that I get kind of 2 for 1.
Right. So I do think it's better to do the video first because then you have both video and audio and you can do whatever you want with them. But what about all the people who've just been doing audio we're telling them they have to go on YouTube. So what do they use? YouTube will generate a static image, right? Do you want to do that or do you want to try to add some more images through or maybe some little silent videos on top of the audio?
I
What do you
think that
think?
the goal with building anything is, again, we were talking about this before, like how long can you stay in the game, right?
Right.
So if you're going to say, if you're going to say I have video and audio and I'm going to remove every single in the audio, and then I'm going to add B-roll in the video and I'm going to add overlay graphics and lower thirds and all this stuff. And I'm going to figure out how to design thumbnails. I'm going to pay someone. All of a sudden, like you just either added like 15 hours of time to your one episode somehow, or you're going to spend a whole bunch of money. So the answer is, what can you afford in terms of time or money? And how are you going to stay in the game long enough? So day 0 doing YouTube, I wouldn't do any of that. I would find a way to get it up on YouTube and just tap into another channel. Now, when it starts to grow, you reinvest the money from ads or from sponsors, or if you have gated content and you reinvest the money into higher production value. You go from doing Zoom or Riverside or Squadcast into renting out a studio for $250 an hour, $100 an hour, or you go drop 50 grand and you build your own studio in your own commercial space. Like there's no limit to the game.
Well, wait, you're doing the same thing we are. We're building a
100%.
studio upstairs.
There's no limit, but the point is,
You're getting it for 50 grand?
yeah,
It's interesting, because I have a theory though.
yeah.
Right? If you think about it, right, television.
Oh, okay.
Has a certain pace to it. 7 seconds.
Yeah.
New camera, new angle, right?
Okay, wait a minute.
So-
Robert, come here. Say this into my mic so I don't have to repeat it. And then
So-
after this question, we're going to take some questions from the Zoom chat.
So
Okay.
it has a certain pace to it.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that if we're putting out video that doesn't change visually from moment to moment, the one analytic that YouTube doesn't give us is what window is prominent. Are they watching after 15 seconds and they see the scene, they see who's talking, and they're checking their feed, they're reading their email. It becomes background. So I'm wondering where the visual appeal is for someone to keep that front and center and let me watch that video,
Mhm.
spending all that time. If we're not changing the visual, someone's not juggling, someone's not showing something, it doesn't change. That's where my thinking.
I have a thought about this. Do you have a thought?
I
Do
do,
you
but
have-
go ahead.
Okay. One thing that I think about when it comes to this is what's the intention of the content that you're creating? Because there are some YouTube videos out there, especially if it's like, more video game style, streaming style, like that kind of stuff. That very much becomes like, I mean, people are invested in that because they're part of something, right? Then also you have other video content that kind of is background noise, but people who watch on YouTube aren't necessarily sitting there in front of their computer. Like for example, I'll watch a video podcast like Diary of a CEO, but I'm not watching it. I'm just listening to it.
Exactly.
Right?
So why are we editing video when podcasts were invented for an audio only device?
So I don't actually edit for video first.
Fine, there was no video.
I don't edit for video first.
But you edit for video because of all the reasons we said to be on YouTube,
Mhm.
because you
If
want,
the eyeballs aren't on it, it doesn't matter.
but Google doesn't care. Google
I have a
sees
thought.
somebody.
I have a
Okay.
thought on this.
Yeah.
So you're right, but I think what you're trying to do when you edit for video is signal enough production value that makes you
Mhm.
stand out from the other ones in the market
Mhm.
so that people start to focus on yours. And even if they only watch it for 5 minutes and they put it on the background, they're going through their emails, they recognize your show as a high value show,
Mhm.
and that signals that you know what you're doing.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think
So
that's what I don't
we
think
have-
that
we have a
the
couple
interviews- yeah.
questions, but I
Yeah.
before we get to everybody else, we want to give the people on Zoom a chance.
I'm like,
'cause we-
we're in New York now.
poor people on Zoom have been like, what about this? So Nick, do you have a question or two?
Yeah, we got a handful of questions that are coming in over here. First one, I guess a housekeeping question. A lot of people are asking about the recording and replay, if it will be sent out and where they'll be able to get it.
Well, we started a YouTube channel and we have it on there.
Ooh.
So it's, I
Yes.
know. I know. And people are listening, but they're not watching it. But it's called Pod Experience, PodXperience. So if you go to where you signed up for this, you'll see the word Pod Experience. That's the name of our YouTube channel too. There's another YouTube channel I discovered called The Pod Experience. Oops, but they don't have the meetup and everything else with it. So anyway, we decided just to keep what we've got. So that's number one. So
Okay, so got that one out of the way.
The answer is
Um,
yes.
Yes.
thank you, Stacy.
Another question, is making a podcast any different from making a YouTube video?
Yes.
That's a great question. Simona, do you want to jump on that?
I feel like they're completely different types of media, to be honest. Like a podcast is, I mean, okay, well, hold on. Hold on. You can get really granular with this because there are some YouTube channels that are just creating, videos that are kind of maybe how to in style or what have you. But then if you have a podcast, I would say maybe most podcasts are more interview style. So, I mean, you have two different styles of content and creating it, but what you find on YouTube is something that you're actively searching for. Like you're wanting an answer to a question that you have. So a lot of the times the content will come up that will come up is content that's going to answer that question for you. Whereas a podcast, this is just my opinion, and a podcast can be more entertainment value, right? I think about the shows that I listen and watch on YouTube. They're mostly from other agencies, other digital creators. Like I want to learn like the how-to behind a lot of things. But if I'm going to put on a podcast from a motivational perspective, I'm probably going to listen to it. So I think you just need to realize like each audience in and of itself is totally different. And then the type of content that you're creating for each platform is totally different. Kind of what Scott was saying before, actually exactly what Scott was saying before. You know, you have your longer video and you take that longer video and you cut it up, you make it smaller, and you make it digestible in different ways to meet that content where your audience is at. Your turn.
Great.
Um,
Well, should we go to another? I think that was pretty complete.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure. Oh,
Let's
thank
go.
you.
Let's go to
Okay.
another question. Nick, do you have
Thank you.
another one?
I'll be here
Yes.
all night.
I'm worn out from that answer. Hey, the next question.
Maybe we should start hitting the bar after this.
So both podcasts and YouTube on-demand content, so like just typical YouTube videos, do not provide interaction with your audience other than the comments, but that's not immediate. So is it worth exploring YouTube Live to represent your podcast content to connect with your audience?
so
I'm going to give that to you, Scott.
I would say the more interaction, you turn your fans into more of a community,
Mhm.
opposed to just passive consumers of the content. So the answer would be yes, with the caveat that it's not easy to do that. So
Yeah.
yes, if you can hire someone to help manage live stream comments, right? Yes, if you're comfortable setting a camera up, pressing go on live and sitting and hoping that nothing screws up so that your feed doesn't cut. So the more interaction is always the best. That's just default to more interaction. Even if you're just on social, should you just be posting and never replying to the comments or never replying to the DMs? No, you should be interacting with your audience. You should be building a community around it. So this is like the live real time is the most community building experience you can get outside of being in the same room and shaking someone's hand,
Mhm.
right? So yes, but it's difficult.
Could you say
Okay.
more about the community?
Well,
What about
Yeah.
the importance of community?
what
When you
about the-
do it, because you just emphasized it a lot, and I think that how can someone do what you just said with the community, creating a community?
So I think
Sorry, I think it was-
to create a community, it's a little bit of what I just mentioned. It's more interaction. It's when somebody comments on your post, you're replying back to them.
Okay, I
you-
was thinking
it's-
you created a community, but.
I
fine.
created
Yeah.
a community, turning people that were like fans of my show,
Mm.
people that come out to in-person events. So you're creating an experience on the
Mhm.
back end of just a social audience.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
not a complicated concept. It's just a step you have to do. So like a meetup like this is community creation. This
Right.
is an example. It's not to be expensive. It's not to be elaborate. It's just you're activating a group of people together collectively towards a common goal or purpose. That's what you're doing.
Mhm.
So you're moving people from just passive audience members into true fans, community evangelists of who you are and what
Mhm.
you do. And that's a step any creator should really eventually make, because I think we just collect audience members and followers and we don't realize that they're real people.
Mhm.
But an audience member and a follower is really not a useful thing for us as business people. We want to turn them into potential customers or take them to the next level. That's where community creation in whatever capacity you feel comfortable, that's how you have to do it.
Mhm.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Alex, you have been waiting patiently. Thank you.
To dovetail on what you were saying, again, doing lives, even doing normal traditional podcasts.
Yeah.
One of the biggest call to criticism of everybody, and it's not just one person, is how do you think the radio clock could help or hurt a podcast? Going back to what you just said, Robert, he had said about people are falling off and we don't know how they fall off. Well, when I do my live stream, I have an outline. I punch up on StreamYard what the topic is, so I can do the bookmarks.
Mhm.
But if you tease it / keep saying this is what's coming up, a lot of podcasters just do their thing.
Alex, can I just interrupt? Excellent point. So Alex is saying during his live stream, he's doing it like a radio show, doing the same thing Richard and I do.
was asking,
Yeah.
should more podcasters do it
Should,
like
so
that?
should, so people can't hear you on the
Oh, I'm
thing.
sorry.
So he's asking, should more podcasters do it like a radio show where they keep a clock and they tease like, oh, don't go away because next we have Scott Clary coming up and he's like this fantastic YouTuber. You don't want to miss this. and just kind of try to keep people engaged and watching for longer.
So yes, you should be speaking with your audience and including them in the conversation. No, you should not break the conversation to speak to your audience if for the sake of just speaking to the audience, if you have a good conversation going. So if I'm, we're just, riffing off whatever, really into it, don't kill it, because you're
Yeah.
going to kill the conversation. And as somebody who jumps on the mic and in front of a camera all the time, or even not in front of a camera, you're comfortable like zoning out and zoning back in. Your guess is going to be like, I don't know why did you just cut me off? I was like, I was in the zone, and then all of a sudden you just like cut it. And then all of a sudden they're going to close up. At the end of the day, a podcaster has to create this environment for the guests to feel comfortable. I think if you do that too much, I think it would actually make them feel a little less uncomfortable, and they would actually not open up the way you want them to.
It's an experience.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So,
I see both sides.
yeah.
I think
So-
it depends.
Balance.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
You're good.
I think too, we have to remember that there's not only one style of podcast, right? It's not just one style of podcast that's interview based and so on. So for example, recently, a couple weeks ago, I was judging the International Women's Podcast Awards that are happening in London. And I was listening to all of these different podcasts that people submitted. And oh my goodness, there's storytelling, you guys. There's music that we can layer in. There's different, there's different sound effects that can be put into your podcast as well. And so maybe you're accomplishing that break and you're, bringing someone along for that deeper experience. Like you were saying, Stacey, you're bringing them along for the ride through these different these little different medias that you're adding in to create a really immersive experience. That's also something that can tend to be more audio specific, but you can also create that on a video perspective too. And so I think that we have to remember as well, like all of us sitting in this room and everyone sitting on our Zoom as well, we all have a different type of podcast. Even our two shows, even though we would interview, hopefully for me, the same type of people, even though we would do that, our questions are going to be different. The way we run our shows are going to be different. But at the end of the day, there's a strategy piece that comes in with YouTube that I think is really important. And that's kind of what you alluded to in the beginning of this, which is really good.
Yeah. So do we have another question in the room? Anybody?
There's a bunch on Zoom.
No,
Yes.
it's more of a statement. I think, just starting out or starting a video, one of the advantages is if you have several playlists going,
Can't hear.
people may not be watching it, but they're listening and it goes to your next podcast.
Mhm.
Oh,
Mhm.
oh, yes. Thank you, Rudy. So Rudy brought up the point that if you have a bunch of videos on YouTube, a bunch of playlists, even if people aren't really paying attention, it automatically kicks into your next one when one finishes. So it does help keep your channel going and more eyeballs getting on it, which helps you with
Yeah.
YouTube and Google. And I mean, I kind of interchange YouTube and Google now because they kind of seem to work on the same algorithms when it comes to SEO. So anyway, do we have any more questions from the Zoom?
Oh yeah, the Zoom is popping over here. So I have two good questions that I think we should definitely hit right now if we have time. One, what are the essentials needed to start an audiovisual podcast in terms of equipment? I think
That's
that's
a
a big,
good one. So
yeah, big barrier for a
Who-
lot of people.
I think Simona should tackle that one because she's
Sure.
helping a lot of people start from scratch.
Sure. Yeah. So I do help a lot of newer podcasters bring their shows to the mic. And I will caveat and say that you can make this as budget friendly as you want and as expensive as you want. And when I first started my podcast, what I would say is this: you need to invest in a good quality mic. And I can let you talk more about the mic side and like the actual other tech side afterwards too. But in addition to that, the basics: a mic, a camera, a way to record, and a background that looks nice. And when I say looks nice, like it isn't distracting, that doesn't have a whole bunch of stuff in it, that isn't drawing the viewer away in too many
You mean like
different
doesn't
directions.
have a big horn thing in the back?
I mean, it's making Scott look real like royal back here. I'm just saying. You look at it in there, you see it in there. He's like, how do I miss it?
Viking man.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my God. But having that said, when When,
It's unseen now.
do you want me to take it down? Okay. Oh, we're gonna see his content on social media later, and it's gonna have half the porn. Oh my goodness. Yeah, exactly. It actually looks like royalty though. I'm just saying. So that said though, I'll give you an example right now because I've been traveling a lot. My setup is this. I have my Shure MV7 mic, which is not the top of the line Shure microphone, but it works for me and it's compact enough for me to travel with. I have a Logi Stream camera that I've been using because my DSLR is sitting in my basement, which is a great spot for it for 2 months, but that's fine. And my computer has been acting up and I actually haven't been able to record in my traditional recording software, which would be Riverside FM, is which I like to use when you're doing remote recordings. So I've actually been using Zoom and I've been doing this for quite a few years. And like, am I thrilled with that setup? No. But does it work? Yes. And is it more important for me to get the message out? Yeah. And are there things that I can do in post-production, especially on the video side, to make it look a little bit better? 100%. Is it going to be as nice as if I was using my DSLR? No, but that's okay. And we start somewhere and we just continue on. Pass it to you.
Yeah. And well, I was going to say with the audio, some of these sites, so we put the Jersey podcasts up on Buzzsprout. Buzzsprout has magic remastering. So it does do a little bit of playing around with your sound to make it better. So if you're interviewing somebody and their voice is low and yours is high, it evens out the voices and it does take out some of the background noise. So there are some little tricks you can do with AI software too.
I'd love to also add for those who ask the question or who are new to this. You've heard me say this before, who've met me, take the microphone out of the box. In other words, it took me 6 months to start my show because I had fear. So take the mic out of the box, order the mic and take it out of the box and put fear aside because it's real and do it anyway.
Yeah, excellent.
that.
So do we have,
advice.
yeah, yeah. Do we have other questions, Nick?
Whoa, excuse me. Yes. So another question, and I love this question, and I think Scott, I'm curious to hear your answer on this one.
Okay.
What are the key strategies and know-hows needed to transcend your podcast across platforms? So as an example, growing a platform across TikTok, Instagram, etc. Is it about posting separate videos or repurposing the content that you already have?
Mm-hmm.
So I can walk you through my strategy because when I started my podcast, I wanted a really scalable strategy that didn't require me to think of net new content for every platform.
Yeah.
It'll never be perfect, but again, the goal is to play the game long enough to be able to win and to learn, right? So long form podcast, and I hope if this doesn't exactly answer the question, then I can answer a different way, but long form podcast, audio, video goes into video 10-minute clips on YouTube. Obviously, audio goes on my RSS feed. Long form video podcast, I use Opus.pro. There's a variety of other ones, but that's an AI tool that takes a long form video and turns it into a whole bunch of short form video content. So think TikTok, Reels, YouTube Shorts. A caveat, when you use AI, what AI does is it gives you the first version. It's only the first version. So I get 20 first version of clips from the podcast. I still edit them anyways. But because a lot of people will just say, I'm going to throw this in, I'm going to get 20 clips, I'm going to put them all up on YouTube. There's no context. They cut halfway through a sentence. It's not perfect, but that's the first version of your content. Opus.pro turns long form into about 20 different clips. I'll pick 3 or 4 of them. That'll go out across YouTube Shorts, Snapchat Spotlights, TikTok, Instagram Reels. I will also transcribe the podcast. I have a Chrome extension that does it. You can also use otter.ai. You transcribe the podcast, and then you can turn that into, and I do, newsletter, blog on my website. I also post it on Medium. I post it on Hacker Noon. I post this blog wherever I can post it. And then I'll take some really prolific thoughts and turn them into tweets. And then I'll take those tweets and then put them in Canva with a little pre-templated graphic that I post up on Instagram.
Okay, so that's a little overwhelming, Scott. I must
But-
say.
Oh, I'm following. I'm here.
But I'd like to say, yeah, how long does that
would
take?
So outside of recording the podcast, so think about what I just did. I took a long form video, you export it to audio. What does that take? Like 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. You take that video, you put it into opus.pro. That without any time will create none of my time. I mean, it process is, but 30 minutes, I have 20 clips. Otter.ai transcribes, that's another 5 minutes. Now I have a transcription, and then I can write. I like to write. It takes me about an hour and a half to write something decent that I can put on my website or in a newsletter. Okay. So, and then for the video piece, now I hire somebody. If I didn't, maybe I'd spend another 2 hours editing those videos so that some of them are acceptable to post on social. So all in all, each podcast, say you do one podcast, maybe I spend 6 to 8 hours creating derivative content from that over the course of a week. And that will be a significant amount of content.
So,
That's enough content for like 1 week's worth of content, which is more than most people post already.
so would you suggest then that maybe you have somebody who knows all those steps, kind of set up a process for you, and then you hand it off to
Correct.
a virtual
So
assistant or somebody?
Hire somebody on Upwork or Fiverr
Mhm.
for $8-10 an hour. You codify the whole process. You can use Loom to screen record step by step exactly what you do. You
Mhm.
hand over the process to them, you train them up on it, and they're doing this job for, well, $60 a week, $70 a week. And you have all that
Right.
content.
Right, which if you have the money, I think is the best way. I mean, you obviously have to do it. Yes, Richard, you have a question?
So I was gonna ask, the algorithms on the different platforms are different though, right? So
Correct.
does that make a difference?
It does.
So
So I-
Richard's question was, the algorithms are different on the different platforms. Does that make a difference in the content you post?
It should, and it does now, but it didn't when I started.
Mhm.
And what I mean by that is remember what I just said. I have to stay in the game long enough to be able to learn how each platform reacts. So my TikTok's not killing it. It's really not. I could create TikTok specific content, but I don't have the bandwidth or the budget for that day one. So I'm going to put some content that's still good. It's not perfect, but it's better than nothing. So I'm building an audience. I'm not building it as fast as somebody doing like the latest dance, but I'm still building an audience on TikTok. So, I mean, I think that it's more important, especially when you're starting to build a system that allows you to meet your audience anywhere and everywhere with different types of content across different types of mediums. So long form video, long form audio, written, short form video. The point is you have to meet your audience everywhere, and you'll collect audience from everywhere. But the alternative is if you never put out a newsletter, then
Something's better
Right.
than nothing.
something's better than
100%.
nothing.
So I have
Yeah.
a quick question, Scott and Simona and Stacy. So if you do a completely audio podcast and you hate being on video, because I know most people kind of hate being on video, right? Even though we don't look as bad as we think we do. Well, I don't know. Hopefully not. But anyway, should you just then stick with your audio podcast if that's where you're comfortable, but maybe take a little bit of a good recording system and do just a few short videos every time that you could post on YouTube Shorts and Instagram Reels and TikTok?
Thought about this.
Go ahead.
One of the things that we do for our clients, so I have one client in specific that is an audio only podcast, didn't want to do any video, has no interest in it, has a YouTube channel with 1,000, just over 1,000 subscribers on it, just for the audio only podcast. Her completion rate is actually pretty decent, and now she's monetized her show. What we do is we have the audio, we keep everything the exact same as the audio that goes on to the actual RSS feed, and we create like a thumbnail graphic for it, put that thumbnail graphic on it, export it as a video, upload it to YouTube. Same thing, keywords, tags, like same thing we would do for a video. And then for her content, when it comes to the content side, you can create so many different things with this. So like you could do a B-roll reel. So if you don't know what B-roll is, it's just taking video that you have like of you driving down the road or, whatever.
Stock video.
Stock
yeah.
video, exactly. And what I've done for my own podcast, when I don't feel like creating that video content, I'll take an audio clip, I lay it over that and use it as a sound, and then turn it. Also, you have like the caption on it. So it's kind of like a quote and an audio from your show at the same time. I don't know what you think about.
Like, obviously, I would encourage everyone to try and find the courage to put themselves in front of the camera. It's just, you're putting in the energy and effort anyways. And even if you don't upload the full hour video, you could get a couple clips that could act as just like promo, teaser, trailer type style content. You can still post on social. You can do that and it will work. It'll just, you're already putting in the energy and effort. And at the end of the day, like,
You might as well.
you don't have to be a supermodel to be like putting content out. That's not why people are coming to see you. They're coming to learn, right? They're like, they really are coming to learn.
Oh, so you could look like Danny DeVito and be a movie star?
Well, yeah.
So Mark has a question. Yeah.
That's
What's bringing the cash register? Are you video casters or are you podcasters?
So
And so you're video casters and
Mhm.
you're just doing podcast as another channel for distributing, making your money, or are you podcasters and it's the opposite?
so
I'm
yeah.
asking about, what's bringing cash register?
So Mark, yes, is saying, what's ringing the cash register? Are you doing video mostly? Are you doing audio as a podcaster? Where are you really putting your energy to support your family?
um
To eat your dinner.
so I run ads on both. I run ads on video and audio. For video, it's baked in, and for audio, it's programmatic. So both are useful for me in terms of revenue.
Are they like 50/50?
No, audio is much more actually. Audio is much more. So I mean, I'll probably get 75% of my listenership via RSS feed
Mm.
versus video.
Yes, Ethne.
So I am a huge fan of audio podcasts. I do watch YouTube videos as well, mainly to learn, but I have never paid for something where I've used video. But the audio feeds that I support the podcast, I'm constantly actually purchasing from them.
That's a super good point.
So just from a consumer's perspective, I don't have a podcast. I don't want a podcast. Listening to you, it's
So Ethne's point was when she watches on YouTube, it's free. And when she downloads audio podcasts, sometimes she has to pay. So yes.
Mhm.
which ones I listen to and I pay for. But I'll also go and buy the book associated with it. Like your idea of
Mhm.
having a book
Mhm.
or reading an article that person is written in a newspaper.
So she'll buy the book associated with it and she'll download the ones and pay for them very selectively. So I think that's a really good point. And that is another thing about YouTube we forgot to say is it's totally free for people.
But that comes back down to community though, right? So that podcast that you're purchasing from has done a really good job to make you part of their community. Yeah. And so there's a whole, in addition to what Scott was saying before, I mean, you can take your community and you can, as a podcaster, create that on something like Patreon or on a membership program or what have you. And then you bring people into your community that way. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do it. But, again, it goes back down to like listener preference and listener habit. If you like to consume in audio, that's where you will consume your content. Yeah.
Yeah. So Robert?
So I'd like to get your thoughts on two things. The importance of thumbnails.
Mhm.
Importance of thumbnails, one on YouTube
and your thoughts on end screen.
and screen
what
on
do you-
YouTube.
What do you utilize in that end screen environment?
So for end screen, I put less emphasis on end screen purely. So when the video is over, you'll have an option to say select 2 more videos, and it will lead you to another playlist or the most recent video
Or your
that.
channel.
Yeah.
It's kind of limited, and I'm assuming the options increase as you gain listenership.
Slightly, but not.
No.
Well,
Like
I
to
can't
an
remember
outside
now, to be
link, 'cause
honest.
It doesn't let you
So-
link your website,
I think there will be a point
but.
when
I
you
guess
cross
if
a
you
certain
have
amount of
enough, yeah,
subscribers
yeah.
or listeners, when you can do like a link somewhere else, but
Now
I would.
It's just purely
Yeah.
internal.
Right. So
Which is fine, and that's all you really want. I think like I would actually, the CTA should, the call to action should be to subscribe or see the next video, because it just seems like you want it, you can do whatever you want. But if I'm trying to get them to do something, I'm trying to get them to do the thing with the least lift.
Yeah.
Right? So
Right.
it's just like, I want them to press subscribe, and I want,
Right.
and then 100 videos later, finally I'll get their email, and if I want to sell something, 2
Well,
years down the line, whatever.
And also
That's a-
consuming your continued content. Like you want them
Correct.
to give you more
Right.
watch time hours so that you can hit
really
that.
want to take them off the platform.
that's a good point though, because I will say, I hear over and over and over again, one call to action.
Yes.
If you give people too many calls to action, they're not going to do
Well,
anything.
one of the things, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but on Vimeo, right, which is a platform that I
Vimeo,
use
right.
for live streaming, it actually allows you, and this would be great if you had it, you could set at any point in your video pop-up, and you stop watching, you can't watch unless you give us your email to get past
Yeah.
5 minutes or whatever it is. And it's a very, very high conversion,
Hmm.
like close to
So,
100%.
But you pay for your Vimeo account.
Not
So,
much.
so on Vimeo, which I have a Vimeo account too that I pay for, what Robert was saying is you can put a pop-up in there saying, if you want to watch the rest of this video, but give me your email. And that he gets a high conversion from that. So, and he live streams on that. So
Yeah.
that is
Yeah,
another
both in
tool.
playback. Well, not for live stream, but purely for playback.
Oh, purely for playback. So that's another tool. So that's another good tool too. I think we have time for one more question from Zoom. And then we're going to do best tips and tricks. And then we're going to do some more general questions and networking. I mean, we can stay up here and keep answering questions if you guys want. So what else do we have from our Zoom audience, Nick?
Okay. This one, actually, we kind of talked about finding someone to do editing, kind of a VA or something like that. So if I have a bunch of content that can be repurposed into shorts, reels, TikToks, who can I hire to do that for me? Or maybe another way to word that is, where can I go
Me.
to
I'm
find
just
someone?
kidding.
You did get a vote in the chat. Sean Douglas shouted out Simona. So
Oh, thank you.
Simona is an option.
Okay, so Stacy has,
Yeah, so obviously friends. And then last month we talked about virtual assistants. There is a guy who came here, happy to share his information. I used him for virtual assistants. So, reach out to any of us for who we use or what we recommend. They're easy to find.
Right.
Clearly it's someone you trust, and then referrals are always the best for that.
and I found I've gotten some pretty good success just going on Fiverr, but it's mixed.
That's why I use Upwork.
Yeah.
Use Upwork over Fiverr because Upwork
Yeah.
you can see like how much they've been billed, like
Yeah.
reviews
Oh,
from the customers.
wow.
So you can see if someone's been billed like $400,000 and they have so many 5-star reviews, you can trust that they're good.
Yeah.
Wait, you said the customer experience?
Yeah.
Stacey's
But
living through the
Upwork
customer
more
experience.
expensive than Fiverr.
Not
No,
necessarily.
not
Not
if you
anymore?
go to Philippines, South Africa, you can find some
Okay.
pretty budget talent.
But I have a question for you.
Go for it.
Your social media content, when you create all these different shorts and all that, do you post them organically or do you schedule them into a platform and have them post for you automatically?
I post them organically.
You do?
Yeah.
Every single one?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I do all the right tags, and I do like if it's a collaboration, do collaboration because
Awesome.
if you don't, then you'll never. Sometimes the tags get a little bit wonky, and you can't collaborate with the people. So I just made the choice. I want to just post natively to each
Love it.
platform and make sure that all the tags are right.
I love
Yeah.
that because it's really interesting. A lot of people want to like save time and save energy and all that stuff, but it's almost like you put all this work into creating all this content and then just to have it kind of flop when you're posting it. Like that?
I just
We do both within my agency, but I was just curious what you
to kind of further this discussion, let's say you have a
Back to the
full-time.
persons, they
Yeah.
get flagged.
Yeah.
That, yeah.
Exactly.
Let's say you have a full-time job and you want
I
to.
did.
I have a full-time job. You want to do this on the side?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if you're working from 8 to 6 doing like whatever
Mhm.
your normal thing is that you do, then how much time do you really have to put into this? Like, can people do a full-time job and do this?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did.
1000%.
You did. I did.
Yeah.
I used to go to work and I used to leave my house at 5 o'clock in the morning. I would work from 8 until 5, sit in Toronto traffic for like 2 hours, come home, I'd make dinner, and then I would work on my passion. That was what I wanted to do every single night. I did it every single night. And I had no audience, no follower, like no nothing. And I launched Happiness Happens to the Abyss. And that's fine. It's landed. And then I started my production company. But I really feel like if it's something that you really want to do, you will find the time and you will make it work. And, I know there's only so much time in a day, but, I think too, having a full-time job allowed me to look at my finances and be like, okay, do I have $100 a month that I can just take and have someone help me do some tasks? Like where $100 is kind of like a night out for a lot of people, right? So
I know Stacy did this too.
Yeah, my husband's in the room and he can attest that I would work all day in corporate, come home and do my podcasting till late night and weekends. And I just want to say something that's really passionate in my mind that do it before you even know that you need it. Because the fact that I did this while I've been in corporate. Now I'm out of corporate only a year, and now I'm not coming into the world of nothing. I now have an established brand. So do your passion before you even know why.
Yeah, I love that.
Mhm. Yes, Richard. Are you going to talk about how you sit on the sofa and do Da Vinci at night? He edits our videos all night long. Yeah. Keyword strategy and hashtag strategy.
How do you maximize?
Like for YouTube, I use TubeBuddy. It does some
Ah.
keyword suggestion and it ranks them based on a whole bunch of intelligence that it can search on YouTube.
So then do you work the
TubeBuddy.
keywords into your presentation or your
N-
discussion, or do you?
No, I would use those to in terms of like the hashtags that I put in the show notes on YouTube, or I would put them in the actual tags for the video. That because like on YouTube, you SEO optimize with I think it's 3 hashtags in the actual show note body that show
Right.
which categories a video fits into, as well as the tags you can put. There's like a tag section on YouTube as well as the actual title. And the title, usually you can there's a tool called Answer the Public.
Richard uses
Yeah,
that.
so you find like high search volume queries. If I can find a high search volume query that matches the subject of the actual podcast, and then add the thought leader's name in there as well, just so they know who's the interview with, that's my best strategy. It's not much more than that.
I have 2 questions for you. The
Mhm.
first one is, do you title your videos and your content before you record, or is that something you do afterwards after you've had the conversation? And I've also been told that using the tag section and the hashtags within the show notes doesn't actually do anything. Do you think that's true?
So to answer your first question, I titled it after.
Okay.
Always,
That's what I
because I want to know what the content is going to be. I don't want to like pigeonhole the discussion. I like to have it like free flowing, just
Yeah.
in case we go in some weird rant that hasn't been discussed before. That's awesome content.
Yeah.
Fine, that can be the title. I don't know enough about
The tags.
the tags. I mean, I would think that there must be some. I mean, Google's not stupid.
Yeah.
So I think that it would at least slightly push it towards the right audience. I think what is a bigger indicator of success for your channel is if your subscribers actually watch your content
Yeah.
and watch it all the way through. And total watch time is, I think, probably more important, because all socials, not just YouTube, what they do is they feed your content to a small subset of your audience, and they test whether or not that audience consumes the content in its entirety. And then it will feed it to a larger sample size and a larger sample size and a larger sample size. So the tags may have some merit, but ultimately, if the content is watched completely, will have a much bigger impact.
I agree.
Okay,
that's
so
really
we're
good.
getting a question. How long does this go? So it doesn't have like that nice little timer like the YouTube video. You see how long they are, right?
I don't even know what time it is.
So initially we're going to do the panel till 8 and then have more networking from 8 to 8:30 and questions, but I'll do whatever anybody wants to. If you want us to sit up here and keep answering questions, we can do that, or we can start networking now.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to subscribe to them so that I don't miss it.
Send it to me.
It's there.
Okay, so
Subscribe away.
Love that energy.
Subscribe. Energy.
So, and I do want to say again that the whole recording will be on our YouTube channel, which is Pod Experience, PODXPERIENCE. And you'll see a picture of Stacy and myself there. So I guess for the people in the room, do you want to keep asking questions and answering them here, or would you rather spend your time networking? Networking? Okay. Yeah. The question is, how long have you been doing it for? So we'll start.
So, so go ahead.
I'm working on my not cutting people off when we're talking. I've been podcasting since 2018, and I've been producing within my agency since 2021.
Okay, Scott.
So my show's 6 years old.
Okay.
I'm 2 years old.
So Richard and I have had Passage to Profit since 2018. We're in our 7th year. And during COVID, I did a lot of work on YouTube. So a few years. Yeah, you don't have to have been doing it forever. The people that have been doing it forever know a lot, but it always changes. Like I'll say to Richard, I'll say, well, last year when I looked this up, when I was doing this research, it said this, but I don't even know if that's still true. I got to go check it again. Right.
The one thing I would say to that 2-year thing is that if you don't have a show, be a guest,
Yeah.
I was on 50
Mhm.
shows before I started my own, and that got me comfortable.
Mhm.
Richard
That's a
had
really
the
good-
question.
So how do the experts stay on top of trends, social media trends?
So how do the,
YouTube trends, algorithms,
Mhm.
what are
yeah, so how do the experts stay on top of the trends?
I have my creators. I have a creator for every single social media platform. I'll have a creator on X slash
Mhm.
Twitter that I follow, and I reverse engineer what they're doing and who's growing the quickest. And I'm studying the person who's up and coming. So I mean, for podcasts, it would be Diary of a CEO, Tim Ferriss, Impact Theory with with Tom Bilyeu, School of Greatness with Lewis Howes. Like I look at where I want to go and then reverse engineer how they're doing it. And that's sort of how I've executed against my career, my entire life. I have a Twitter, I have a Twitter person I look at all the time. I look at Sahil Bloom. He grew up really, really quick and blew up really quick on Twitter. Justin Welsh on LinkedIn. Trying to think, like Gary Vee is a pretty standard Instagram person to unpack. But yeah, I study. And if somebody is new to the scene and they're sort of growing quicker than average, then I'm like, okay, what are they doing different?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So I want to give Sonia a chance to ask her question.
No, it's good. It's fine. I'll just tell you later. No.
So Sonia, you wanted to ask about the thumbnails? Tag on Robert's question about the thumbnails? What do you do? So we can throw this one to Simona.
Sure. Yeah. So actually, I wanted to ask you this question. To be honest, no. This is what I wanted to ask you because no. This is what I wanted to ask you because one thing that we've been playing around with a lot, and just again, like you were just saying, it's the idea of like success leaves clues, right? And so you look at other creators and you see what are they doing, how do you get ahead of the trend, and so on and so forth. What we've been doing is not putting the whole title in the thumbnails, trying different things with different graphics and having some thumbnails just be just graphic and like no words at all. So I don't know the exact like science to it, but hey, I don't know the exact science behind it, to be honest, but what I've noticed is having a thumbnail with different wording that's shorter and more impactful than the actual title, because the title is more keyword loaded, right? Whereas your thumbnail is like, start this now. You're kind of like, oh, okay, start this now. And then you click it. So we've been testing that sort of, I don't want to say like reverse psychology, but kind of a little bit of the two between. But I want to ask you, is that something that you do as well?
So the thumbnails, if you go to my channel, the thumbnails that I use now are not thumbnails that I'd actually recommend you using. So I'm switching. I mean, I've gone through so many versions of different thumbnail strategy, and the version that I'm moving towards is very similar to yours. So we're testing out right now different graphics for, like, the industry term is clickbait, but it's as long as it's actually what's in the show, I don't consider it clickbait. So instead of saying Scott and to pick a guest and some boring like how to grow a business, it's like X person lost $1 billion. Or a sentence they said that's like a really outlandish sentence. And even without context, your goal is to get the person to click through. So yes, thumbnails are incredibly important.
Yeah.
That's why YouTube recently released an A/B test thumbnail option right into their products. You can A/B test thumbnails and see which one wins and then go with that.
I don't think we have that in Canada.
I don't. But it will roll
That's
out.
cool.
eventually.
So
That's really
one
cool.
thing about thumbnails. I've been having a lot of fun because a lot of people
have
use
that now.
Canva, and I use
Shows you how
Canva.
important
Really? Okay. I use Canva for thumbnails, and what's really fun is that I go into the AI app on Canva and ask it to make the pictures for my thumbnails, and it's really fun. I mean, I don't know how good they are. I have to look at them and see, but I've been using some of the AI generated thumbnail pictures in Canva in my thumbnails and trying different thumbnails. So
I'm just trying to think of like an example based off of what you said. Like, if you did a podcast interview with someone and the title of it is like lost $1 billion overnight, the thumbnail might be like, don't make this mistake.
Yeah.
And then you're kind of hitting both sides at the same time. That's how I would think of that.
Are you doing that for shorts and not the long form? But
No.
you're doing that too?
I actually don't put covers on my shorts. I don't know if you do, but
Not
you can on like the video, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
So yeah, I know there's more. Yes.
On LinkedIn, I saw
Hmm.
that you had posted the other day a response to somebody asking for data on podcasts. And answered.
I don't remember that one. I've been on LinkedIn so much. So she's talking about data on podcasts.
Good sources for people to go and find out data.
Oh.
on podcasts.
Oh, to find
That was
data
good.
on podcasts. That's really good. So
Isn't it?
we use Chartable to see how our podcast, although Chartable hasn't been very good lately, and Listen Notes is good.
I use,
I'm-
so there's another one that's a paid tool called Raphonic,
Mm-hmm.
that shows you different podcasts. There's potential download size, there's social reach, and like Listen Notes is a good one too, but
Mhm.
Raphonic, I think everything paid is usually just like a standard better. And you can Raphonic, REPHONIC. And it also, by the way, as a tool to guest on podcasts, it will give you all the data about the podcast, download numbers, social, whatever. It also try and find the host's email or some admin email, and it'll give you that. So if you want to run campaigns.
That's a great tip.
It'll also tell you what your listenership is like for your show, the demographic, like if someone listens to your show, what other shows are they listening to as well? So you can kind of see who your competitors are in that space, which is really cool too.
Yeah, so
That's cool.
it's,
Hmm.
we still have a couple more questions. So, okay, quickly, and then Mark. Yeah. Are you monetizing, Scott?
So I'm monetizing the built-in monetization on YouTube barely pays anything.
Hmm.
But I'll close ads and I'll bake them into the video. Like I'll close a deal, like an ad deal, and I'll bake that 30 to 60-second mid-roll into the video, upload that onto YouTube, and I'll get,
Mhm.
you know, $35, $40 CPM for business finance content. And I'll also sell ads on the audio feed.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
It's same difference. The only difference is for YouTube, you can't do programmatic because most hosting platforms, you can set insertion points and then you upload audio and it'll automatically serve the audio against the insertion points in that audio, in that podcast feed. So you can, you know, say, I'm going to give you 50,000 or 10,000 impressions. And then I'm going to switch the audio. I'm going to give LinkedIn 10,000 impressions. And I'm going to give, you know, NetSuite 10,000 impressions or Athletic Greens 10,000 impressions. You can swap it in and out with audio. YouTube doesn't have that capability because once you upload a video, it's set. So if I include a 30-second or 60-second mid-roll ad, it'll be in that YouTube video for the rest of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which you would probably
Yeah.
charge even more money for because that's literally staying on your channel forever.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So-
I charge a higher CPM for that.
Yeah.
Than,
yeah, so we have one, Mark had one more question.
Maybe kind of close the question. What questions should we have asked you that you didn't?
What questions should they have asked that they did not? I'm gonna go through my list and see.
I would say how to do an intro. What's the most effective intro on YouTube?
Oh, I did.
Take it
have
away,
that
Scott.
on
Take it
here.
away.
Well, so I do want to point out here quickly that I went on and listened to each of these three people's YouTube channels, and each of them has a different type of intro.
Mhm.
So Simona has what I would call a host intro where she starts talking. Scott has a cold open like we do on the radio show where he puts some like high impact content, just short clips at the very beginning and then gets into it. And then Stacy has the branded video intro where she has her brand come up and then she introduces herself and starts talking. So I think they all work, right?
Mhm.
as long as the listeners stick around, they work.
Yeah.
That's all that matters. So pay attention to that.
Yeah.
See where your
Mhm.
listeners drop off.
Testing it. And also too, I remember a client of mine, we were testing kind of the similar style that how I would intro it, like
Uh-huh.
more like just like talk to camera type of thing. But then we would put a sting halfway, like right after. It'd be like a 20, not even 20-second intro, maybe 15 seconds, and then put like a sting with music and like a graphic and branding, and then it would go into the conversation to like break it up a bit. And another thing that I like to do is see on client channels where the content drops off, like where do people stop listening? And we actually started putting in like a subscribe button or making sure there's a button in the video around that timestamp to be like, oh, break in visual. Even if you're not doing fancy video or anything like that, you have something that pops up to make your eye distracted and stick a little longer.
And also
Yeah,
just
that's good.
ask your audience, like ask
Yeah.
your listeners, like send a newsletter and say, what kind of intro do you like? And you get feedback.
That's
Do a
actually
type
such a
form,
good
do a
point.
survey.
Such a good point.
Yeah, we actually had somebody on the radio show.
I know. Speaking your language. Yeah.
Radio show was what was the name of his company? Oh, it was PickFu, where you can pay $1 per person and you can get feedback on, you can send a couple of images or whatever and get feedback. So I thought that was a pretty good deal. So, I mean, maybe you just do 10 people and you get enough information. It costs you $10. So anyway, yeah, I think at this point we should it's 8:10. And this is supposed to end at 8:30. So I think we might want to do a little bit of networking now and ask more questions. And I do want to say before we quit that tomorrow, Richard and I are going into iHeart Studios to record the Passage to Profit show. And we're taking these 3 as our guests. So we're really excited. We're all going to be on the Passage to Profit show recording tomorrow, and it'll be out in like a week and a half. So we're pretty excited about that. So we're glad to have them here tonight and glad to be hanging with them tomorrow. So
Thank
For
you.
having us.
Thank you so much.
good job, you guys.
Thank you, Nick.
Yes, thanks a lot, Nick. We real appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.